Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for the PCN webinar for domiciliary providers. So I'm Debbie Roberts and I work in the communications team at PCSE and I will be facilitating this evening's webinar. Okay, so just having a look at the agenda for this evening, I'll first run through some introductions to let you know who's on from PCSE this evening. And then before we run through each system demo, we'll just give a brief overview of what PCNs are, like how to create them and things. And then looking at the system demos, we'll be looking at PVN creations, amendments and cancellations. We'll also be looking at same day additions, substitutions and venue changes, and we'll also be giving you a system demo on creating a GOS6 and a GOS3. And like I said previously, after each system demo, we will be having a pause and just going through some of your questions and providing the answers. So on the call with us this evening, I've already introduced myself, so I'm Debbie Roberts and I work in the communications team at PCSE. And we've got Salma Paveen, who is kindly going through the system demonstrations with us. And Salma works in the PCSE Ophthalmic Payments team. And I've also got my colleague Laura Harwood working in the background, making sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. And she also works in the PCSE communications team. So we're first going to talk about creating a PVN in PCSE Online. So in order to submit a GOS6 claim, a pre-visit notification, PVN, must be submitted for a domiciliary visit in line with NHS regulations. Now, it is really simple to submit a PVN. Now, you'll just simply log into your PCSE Online account, click the Ophthalmic tab, and then just click the GOS6 tab, and then click the GOS6 PVN tab. So just a couple of things to note about the creation of a PVN. So you can only claim a domiciliary fee in respect of a patient who is eligible for a GOS site test. So for example, if they're unable to leave home unaccompanied for reasons of physical or mental illness or have some form of disability. We just ask that you don't submit a GOS6 claim completed for a domiciliary visit until you have received a PVN reference number. That's because it's a mandatory field that does need to be included on the claim, and a separate PVN must be completed for each visit. So just looking at timescales, there are some specific timeframes for submitting PVNs to comply with GOS regulations. And these are where mobile services are to be provided to 2 or less patients at the same address. That's a period of at least 48 hours notice and not more than 8 weeks notice that's required. Now that excludes weekends and public holidays. Now, where mobile services are to be provided for more than 2 patients at the same address, a period of at least 3 weeks notice and not more than 8 weeks notice is required. And that includes weekends and public holidays. And just to let you know that PCSE cannot accept notifications made more than 8 weeks in advance. Okay, so that's just a quick whistle-stop tour of how to create a PVN. I am going to hand over to Salma now, who is going to show you a system demonstration. So she's going to take over the screen and show you how to create a PVN in PCSE Online.
The first thing to do is obviously log into PCSE Online. Like Debbie's mentioned, we're using a dummy test account. So you log into your own appropriate account. Select your organisation. If you have one, it'll be one. If it's multiple, you can select multiples, but obviously one at a time. You can only do one PVN at a time, as Debbie's mentioned. Go to Ophthalmic and make a claim. Now, you can't create a GOS6 claim without a PVN, as Debbie's mentioned. So you'd go into GOS6 and the first thing it gives you an option of is create a GOS6 PVN. So you'd fill in the appropriate details and you're looking for the PVN reference that is generated up here. So I'll show you in a moment. Everything's going to say test pretty much. I'll put down, they're not live details. It's just to allow us to test today. So if I was to say I wanted to do a visit, I need to meet the timescales that Debbie's mentioned. So I'm going to look at a PVN for 2 patients. I need to give a minimum of 48 hours notice, and it is quite particular about the time. So it's 6 or 7 right now. If I was to say, you know, to me 48 hours is, where are we on the 16th? On Saturday, but as we As you realise from what Debbie mentioned, the weekends and bank holidays are not included in this notification period, so you'd have to look to at least Monday later on in the evening. So put Monday, and if we say, I don't know, 19:00, because that gives me over that 48-hour notification period. If I was to say, nope, I want to go 12 o'clock, select the appropriate premises. Obviously, you'll know whether it's a daycare centre, a home, residential home, and then whoever your contact is there. So the first thing we're going to do is I know this shouldn't allow me to go through, but I'm just going to show you as an example of, how important it is to make sure you're checking the time of the visit and that you're giving that minimum notification period. But the first thing is doing this header, which gives you the details of the contractor, which is yourself, the venue, and then it provides you with this PVN reference. And it'd be advisable, and we'd recommend you making a note of that PVN reference, but even if you did not, you can actually go back and search that PVN reference number, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. I'm going to make a note so I don't forget. So I'm just going to do test patient 1. As if these are made up date of birth, please ensure you put the accurate details, because this is your foundation of your GOS6 claim. So whoever the patient is, their first name, the surname, as it needs to be on the GOS6 claim, plus the correct date of birth. If you have a national insurance number, great. An NHS number, sorry, not national insurance number, please fill that in. Date of site test is always helpful because that will determine interval period if there isn't any site test in the system. Or, as you would do any other claim, you're kind of preempting whether this is a first test or unknown. If you've not been told the details when you're doing the PVN, you can select unknown, but this can be updated when you're doing your GOS claim. Save your first patient. We do the second patient. Now that should accept my PVN, I know, but I just want to show you some of the little bits, if you were trying to do extra patients as well. So it's going to reject for 2 reasons, potentially. Well, we'll try the first reason actually, which was the date on here and the timescales, because I've not met 48 hours. If I click submit, you'll get this error message which says the notice period has not been met. At least 40 hours notice is required. So that would mean that I need to amend this section here. If I was to click submit now, because I've said it's at 7 o'clock on the 20th, it will accept my PVN because I provided that minimum 48-hour notification period. I will show you maybe if we try to add a third patient to that PVN. So like I was saying, you go back into your GOS6 screen, you go back to searching a PVN, you can find your PVN, and there's various ways of doing it. If you have the PVN reference and you've noted it, like I have done, you can just put the PVN reference in. If not, you can put the date of visit, or you can put the notification date. So if I just wanted to check what I've notified today, should be a few different ones. And then you can check if you've got different ones, which I've done, and then you can find the one that you were looking for. So I was looking for this one, and I want to amend the details. So you can go on any time and amend the information before the visit. If you do it after, it's not going to accept it, and it'll revert your claim to a draft, your PVN to a draft. But let's say I thought, oh, I want to add another patient. So and you choose a date as well. And I've been given the site test date for this patient, and let's say they did it in January this year. Hopefully not on the new year. It won't let me proceed because it's less than the minimum 12-month interval period. So the system will say, nope, you can't do that because that's your minimum site test. And you need to then select what you believe is the reason you're having to visit this patient earlier. Now, again, similarly to, if you didn't know the date of last site test, you can amend this once you do have confirmation and put it appropriately. So whatever you feel is the appropriate reason, you'd select that, and that would allow you to save the patient details. So the patient details are saved here, but now if I was to go to submit, it would bring up that same error message as it did previously to say, I need to give a minimum of 3 weeks notice. Obviously, the slight variance is this is now based on the fact that I'm applying for 3 patients rather than the 2, and it won't allow me to proceed. So you need to remove that patient. or another patient if you've decided to change that around, and click submit. And then you should always get this message, your PVN has been submitted. So that's sort of the main how to process an initial PVN on the system. Obviously, just so that you're aware, when we're processing PVNs, obviously you need to ensure all this data is accurate. You can put as many patients on if it's going to be more than 3 weeks and up to 8 weeks. And if there's a reason for why you're submitting the PVN in less than the approved interval period, you need to put a comment on here and select the reasons for why a PVN is needed for less than 48, but that does require pre-approval and not from PCSE, that would be from your ICBs.
Hi, Salma. Thank you for that. So one question that we've got, Salma, is if I visit a care home and someone else requires a site test, can I do this on the day?
Yes, so I will cover off same day addition. So I think it falls into one of our other demos that we're going to go through. So it's like an addition. If you go into a care home and somebody needs urgent site tests and you wouldn't have been able to do, the notification earlier, you can do an addition. You can do up to 3 additions on the day. So I'll show you how to do the additions as well through one of the PVNs.
Brilliant, thank you. And another question that we've got. So if a patient reports blurred vision for an early sight test, what do we put? Is it option 3.1 or 3.3 that requires the outcome of the sight test?
I wouldn't be able to. So again, this is a bit more like a regulatory sort of policy question. We are given what the early retest reason codes are, and we can share those with you, but I wouldn't know which is the right one. And the best people, if you're unsure or which early retest code to use, I would ask one of your clinicians or speak to your local ICB to advise you. We've been given the list of the appropriate site early retest codes that you can use, but apologies, we're not qualified in that area to let you know which one would be the best one. But if it helps, we can share what each early retest code means. So what 1 means, what 2, 3, and so on means.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thanks, Salma. So we've got another one. So how do you get approval for a PVN for less than 48 hours? So I'm guessing that's if somebody needs an urgent visit.
You'd contact your ICB. So I believe they will have been in contact, the commissioners, you'd have their contact details, and you'd let them know the reason for it. And if they provide you with approval, then you can go ahead with that visit. You just have to make sure you put that you've had the approval on the system and who's approved it for you, and that should be fine. But again, the approval has to come from your ICB.
Lovely, thank you so much. So just another one before we do move on. So can I see if another provider has submitted a PVN for my patient before I try and create a PVN?
Not at the moment, unfortunately. We have asked that question to NHSE and asked what options we have, but that would require a system change, and it will take time to, have a look at what the best solution would be. So currently, no. So what your PVN should do is it should flag for you if the details that you put in matches the details that somebody else has put in for that patient. And I'm referring to GOS6 and PVNs here, not if your patient was well enough to go do a site test and go into a store. This is just on the GOS6 PVNs. Your PVN will flag if there has been another site test, created elsewhere. I can show you an example in a moment to show what message you would get, but you would need to contact PCSE by email or on the contact us page with the details of your PVN and let us know that you've got a visit, that it's flagging that there's another patient on there, or that the patient's been seen, or it's a duplicate. It will vary in the messaging, but in essence, it will not accept your PVN. So if you send that email, the team will work through the PVN reference that you've given. They'll have a look at the patients on there. They'll check to see if another visit has been actually, has another PVN been created, yes or no, and then off the back of that PVN being created, has a GOS6 been done, and they'll notify yourself whether, we have an outstanding PVN that still has time to have the GOS6 processed. Or because, as you know, currently the validity period for a GOS6 is 6 months. So if a PVN is active and valid, yeah, we may have passed the date, but maybe the contractor hasn't had the opportunity to submit they might still be using paper and submit the form. They might not have had the opportunity to submit it online. So we would notify you to say that a PVN has already been in place at that point. But the only way to do that currently is by raising a case, providing your PVN reference, and we can investigate for you. I mean, if you'd like, Debbie, I can do a quick demo and show an example. You saw me a moment ago creating a PVN. So I created this PVN just a moment ago, and this has patients. So just so that I can confirm the details. So we've got test patient 1, and then I've got test patient 2. So if, for example, either yourself and you'd had a PVN set up, but you hadn't cancelled it, and there wasn't a record anywhere, so you didn't realise it, or another provider has done a PVN for this patient, if you were to go in now and create a new PVN, and let's have a look. Enough time. If I want to add that same patient on to this PVN, assume I don't know, it'll get to this point, but when you click submit, it'll tell you that the patient is already on a PVN. So this brings up the message if that patient is already on a PVN that you have for your organisation, and it'll ask you to contact PCSE via email or phone. We can share the email address that we use, or you can go on the contact us page. But I've got a PVN for a different patient that I did earlier. Just going to remove this patient. You get this error message if that patient has a visit or a site test planned in with another provider. So I did a test on a different dummy account to just see, you know, what sort of error you get, because we don't see these every day in essence. So you're going through these on a daily basis, but this is what the portal will show you. So it's telling you that a request for another contractor to provide a domiciliary site test for a patient with that name and address has already been made and it's been approved. So we are in the process of updating this email address, so apologies on that, it's not been updated. So I'll share the email address in this chat with you. But if this happens, the only way around it is to send us this email with your PVN reference on it. It'd be good to have the date that the visit is going to take, so we know, you know, is it an urgent one or it is, so we can investigate. Because depending on how many patients you're on there is nothing that flags to say, you know, patient A, patient B has got a site test elsewhere. It just does one summary message for the PVN. So the team will investigate and check every single patient on the PVN just to see how many are impacted or how many have had a PVN either elsewhere or with yourselves within the interval period. And this is why it's really important that if you're not going to pay a visit, cancel your PVN, cancel your visit, remove the patient, because if you see, if I was to go and search for the PVNs today that I've done, I'm probably covering something we're going to cover in a bit, so apologies, and I may go over this, but whilst we're just going through this right now, I have a look. PVNs that will be stuck in draft, because obviously that example, it's brought that message up, it said you can't do it, and it will not give me that accepted message because I can't. So anything in draft I need to raise to find out, especially when it brings up the message that there's another patient there or there's been a duplication. Obviously you can't cancel this one in draft at the moment because it hasn't been accepted. But if you have an accepted PVN, if you're not going to visit or you're having to change it to an entirely different day and it's not like an urgent substitute, please ensure you press cancel GOS6 PVN so it cancels the PVN for you. Or alternatively, if it's just one patient on that PVN, you remove that patient. Otherwise, this patient is always going to look like they're going to have a visit. Sorry, I sidetracked there, Debbie.
It's super important. Obviously, it's the housekeeping is so important, just to make sure that you do keep on top of obviously cancelling a PVN if you're not able to attend. I will jump onto that in a moment, but we did have one more question, and it was about requesting an urgent PVN. So how do you get the permission to submit a PVN for less than 48 hours? Is there a process that they need to follow, or?
It's contacting your local ICB, getting their approval from them. So I guess it'll be explained to them the reason why you can't meet the regulatory requirements of minimum 48 hours. So you just contact your local ICB, they would advise, and then you would select where I was showing you in the PVN screen, you would select that it's less than the 48 hours and the reasons, and then you'd put your comments in as to why you're doing it. So I would start a PVN, and if it needs to be less than the 48 hours, get your approval and ensure you select the reason why it's less than 48 hours and then submit it through, and that should be fine. It has to be the local ICB that provide you with this information.
Lovely, thank you. And I think I saw it flagged up that somebody asked what an ICB was. So the ICB is the integrated care boards that took over your local CCGs. So hopefully that helps you understand who the ICB is. Okay, so I'm now going to just go through same day additions, substitutions, and how we amend and cancel PVNs. So if you are notified that you can't attend an arranged venue on the day, say for example if an illness breaks out at a care home, then you will be able to arrange a same day venue substitution in PCSE Online. This is just so long as NHS England have already been notified of a planned visit to the alternate venue and the visit hasn't already taken place yet, and you inform NHS England and they agree to the substitution. And for a same day addition and substitutions, so you can also make a same day addition or substitution where NHS regulations state that up to 3 changes can be made at the time of the notified visit, but only if it wasn't possible to provide the 48 hours notice. So for example, in respect of a new resident or a person who has only just developed an eye or vision problem. And so, as we've already discussed, one of the key admin tasks that you do need to keep on top of is amending or cancelling a PVN if you're not able to visit them on the day. So, for example, if you're unable to go on a site visit for one reason or another, you must log into PCSE Online and cancel the active PVN. If you don't, it keeps the PVN on the system and then essentially blocks the patient care, and it will stop another optometrist visiting that patient. PCSE Online cannot process a new PVN if the original hasn't been updated or cancelled. The new PVN will remain in a draft, as Sam has just shown you, and then that will result in the GOS6 claim being rejected. So changes to PVN, including cancellations, may be made at least 48 hours in advance of any visit by just logging into PCSE Online and making the changes. And I'm now going to hand you back over to Salma, who's going to show you how to amend and cancel a PVN in PCSE Online.
Again, for amending and cancelling PVN, you need to go into your original PVN, which will be search for an existing GOS6 PVN that we had a look at. And like I've said, you've got your different search functions. If it's the date, if it's a PVN reference. So if we just have a look at the PVN that I did earlier. So I have the reference, I can search it. It's been accepted, so this is why I have the option to cancel. If I want to amend the details, I would click on here and update, but again, be conscious of the fact that it's still, this one has got 48-hour notice. If I'm going to make changes that are going to mean it doesn't meet the 48-hour notice, it will go into draft. If I try to amend the date, it'll just bring up the error message, you can't do this. So if I try to, I don't know, but I was going to go out 18, 29, I don't know if it'll allow me to. Sometimes it's, you shouldn't be able to go time travel backwards. And but obviously because I'd accepted this earlier, it's allowed me to change the time slightly because it's saying you're still within time, you've made the change, there's still 48 hours. But if I tried to change it to a much earlier time, it would not allow me to. It is very sensitive with time and your patience. If I try to add another patient, I think we've already seen that, but I can show you again. If I try to add a third patient on, it's going to reject it. It's going to say, nope, you can't do this patient. This will probably flag that there's another site test because I'm sure I've tried this name before. But let me try a date of birth that I haven't. So yeah, you know, it will give you the appropriate error message or notification to say what you can if you try to make the amendment. But if the only amendment that you're trying to make is, let's say, you've now been given, you were given a date of birth, but it wasn't the accurate date of birth, and you've had a call in between and they said, oh, this is the incorrect date of birth, you can change the date of birth. So if that means, you know, you can update the spelling of the patient's name, that is possible as long as you're not adding additional patients, or you're not changing the dates to earlier dates, or you're not trying to, I guess, override the rules or the guidance that NHS have set for regulations, which is the minimum 48-hour notification for up to 2 patients. But you have to make sure you save it, it's now updated it, and then you submit it again. But now it's saying, oh, no, why are you making this change? It's a different patient. And all I would put in there is, for me, it is this one. You've got a reason. As long as you're occurring file, you don't have to go to your ICB. You don't have to say, right, hi, I need approval for less than 48-hour notice. You can update this. But if it was more than this, if it was for any other reason, like I said, you haven't had prior approval, you've gone in, you've done your PVN, it's going to ask you to get that approval and make sure you put why you're doing the amendment or change. Might be a lot to take in sometimes, but when you work with the system, it's trying to understand, so what's the reason? So this was just literally a date of birth change that we did. So if I go back now, you'll be able to see that this patient's date of birth has been updated, my PVN is still accepted, and it shows a reason. So if there was a check done on this PVN and we were requested to provide a detail of why it's changed, why it's updated, why it's amended, what's changed, we will have an audit history of what changes were made, and we'll be able to say, right, this is the reason why. However, if I try to put less than 48-hour notice, so let's say my change was not going to be the time, I needed to go in tomorrow, and I need to go in at 12 o'clock. I've called the ICB. The system's going to be like, nope, you can't do this. So I would put the reason for the change. So is it the patient is new? You know, is the patient developed an eye or vision problem? And then who's given me a proof? I don't believe this person exists, but Sam at Manchester, ICB approved visit. So this will keep a record. So if there is a need to, do a PPV check the PVNs, if there's a need for someone to review whether these PVNs had prior approval, they can do that, and then you submit that through. Now it's saying it's amended for less than selected drop down because of the, I obviously clicked a few different options. If in and is less than 48 hours before visit, a reason must be selected in the drop down. I selected a reason. Oh, I don't have a drop down. Oh, here we go. I'm making this up, so apologies. I'm not a professional when it comes to any medical reasons and such.
Thank you, Salma. Right, let's have a look and see what questions we've got, shall we? So one of the questions are the fields for NHS England office and LOC mandatory?
They're automated, so
that will auto-populate?
Yes, yeah. So they are for the portal, and that's why when you have a look at they grayed out, so you won't ever be expected to fill them in, because what the system is using your ODS code to pick that information up itself.
Lovely, thank you. And someone's asked, how do they know who to contact at the ICB or the local area team? Is there a specific website that they can check for that information? I don't think it's something that PCSE would provide, but don't suppose if you know where they'd be able to find that information.
We can find out from NHSE for you. We've not had any specific details shared with us at PCSE to say this is how you get the contacts, but I normally Google search it all.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I know, have a Google at your local ICB and they might have a separate section with all the contact details on, maybe.
Yeah, and if you want to find out who your local ICB is, so not the contact details, but which ICB you fall under. For those of you that have ever used NHS Digital, there's the ODS portal in there. I can quickly show you. This is an ODS portal, and on here, when you type in your ODS code, so mine won't be set up because mine's a dummy account, but it would find for you, because if there was, what you would do is literally put your ODS code in, it brings up your details for your organisation. So it'll say your organisation name, your ODS code, and there's a little section which refers to the NHS sort of ICB office. So it'll say, like, I don't know, a reference like QOP as an example, and then it'll say Manchester Integrated Care Board or so on. So if you type that in there, here's the information held, but this is who you're looking for, your higher health authority. So for yourself, I think it was Stephanie who kind of shared hers first, it would be NHS Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Integrated Care Board. So at the moment, like I said, the only way we have internal contacts that have been shared with us, which we're not able to give out as a list because they're for us internally. However, there will be a contact that's provided for yourselves externally. So we can ask the NHSE counterparts and our contacts to ask if there is a website or a page that you could go to which provides you with that information.
I've just got another question, Salma, while we are talking about ICB. So somebody said that they cover multiple areas. So which ICB would they need to contact? Would it be the ICB of the area that they're visiting, or where they're actually based or registered?
It'll be based on this ICB that's set for you under your ODS code. So it's based on your organisation where that's based, your local ICB.
Lovely, thank you. Time to have a look at completing a GOS6, I believe, and a GOS3.
You've done your notification, you're going to do your visit, you find your GOS6. So if we do a search here, and let's have a look, this is PVN. What I'll do is I'll cover off obviously doing the GOS3s and the GOS6s. The addition isn't you adding something new to your PVN, it's on the day. So if on the day you were doing your GOS6 and you had a visit to your patients, you had one or two patients, but you went in the care home or the home and somebody needed urgent care, you can add up to a maximum of 3 patients. And this is kind of here's my PVN, this is my visit, I'm gone into PCSE Online. You don't need to amend the details because you're happy, you've got it all set, you're at accepted. If you wanted to cancel, you can do because you're not visiting, and this is the housekeeping. You press cancel, press confirm, and then it cancels it. It won't just cancel out right now, so we've updated that. But if you had some additions, you would click on here. You wouldn't add them to your PVN. They would just be processed as part of this PVN. But if we do a GOS6 first, and then I'll go and show you the additions. So I've got one patient. That's my patient test J. Happy with everything. And my visit is today. So you click on your create a GOS6. And that takes you straight to the GOS6 form. So you won't see this unless your PVN isn't accepted and you have that create a GOS6 option. The blue bits are the bits where you can fill in, but these are optional. Yeah. And this is why I was saying it's important your PVN is correct, because when you move from your PVN to your GOS6, as you can tell, your names are automatically populated and they're grayed out. You cannot change them. And this is why it's essential that your PVN, the names, the date of birth, and that information is correct, because the details you provided us on the PVN before you're visiting is what the system is making the decision on, that you can do that visit. And if you need to change it, that then changes it might be a small spelling change, but it will change the fact that that's not the same patient when it's checked is there another PVN in the system? It's not used those details. And that could make a difference between maybe we would have said no to your PVN rather than a yes. So please make sure that information is correct. Obviously, title is optional. If you have it, you can fill it in. If not, you don't have to. If there's a previous name, you've got your address here. And then again, you can see it's grayed out. So this is all the information you've already filled in on your PVN. This is why this information is grayed out. If you have any of this information, please do fill it in. Now, this is the bit I said you could change when you do the site test as well. So let's say on your PVN, you've still not been given an update. You've got the correct name, date of birth, but you've not been told correctly. And when you do the visit, they say, oh, no, we had a site test. Oh, it was, on this day. You can fill that information in. But then that is at that point it's right, okay, is this less than the interval period? And if so, should I be continuing or not with this visit? That would be something that you'd need to consider. Again, PCSE can't advise you on that, unfortunately. But let's assume this is the first one. Then you'd put whatever reason they fit within, why they need a domiciliary visit. The system already creates your claim ID, so you can make a note of that if you ever want to check the status of that. Then you save and next. So it's methodical. It won't let you proceed unless you fill in the details and it's correct. So you do your patient's eligibility. If I filled in the wrong thing, I don't know, I was not awake and I put the patient's under 16 and I forgot to tick anything else and I tried to do next, it'd be like, no, you can't do that. The eligibility doesn't match. And then you'd have to go back and correct it. So you can put the patients over 60. Is there any other reason for their eligibility other than any benefits? You don't have to put all, if that's what applies and it meets the criteria, you can put that. You always need to tell us if the evidence is seen or not seen, otherwise it won't let you proceed. And then we'll click next. So I know that's going to allow me to go through. Capture your patient's signature. So it's either going to be your patient's, a parent, carer, guardian, depending on their age or, if they're well enough, and you just select the appropriate information. If it's a patient, the address auto-populates for you. If it's a parent, carer or guardian, so let's say you're in a care home and you're getting one of the care workers to support, you'd put their details here and then you'd put the address for the property, I believe, in here. You can tick same address, it'll generate the exact same address, or you can put the full address in. That's entirely up to yourself, but please ensure you make sure you provide their name as well for us. You can fill in ethnicity, but that's optional. Again, I'm going to use patient as an example because it's a lot straightforward and then you're not having to put other details in. You click on sign declaration. It creates your QR code. It works like any of the GOS types if you guys use the other GOS types on PCSE Online. Squiggle, whatever they can sign. You can use a mouse, you can use a tablet, phone, whatever way, whatever technology you have available, the patient can sign or whoever's signing on their behalf. Click accept and it'll bring up a message to say it's been saved successfully. Save and next. And this is where you fill in from your patient's details from your perspective. Is this a one patient visiting that you're visiting? Is it multiple patients in that property? Is it first, second or third patient? What the outcome was. So I'm just going to tick one because I've got one patient on here. If I tick that, then I'd get the choice of selecting either of these. What was my outcome? So if I was to say, because I'd like to do a GOS3 off the back of this, I'd put a new change prescription was issued or a voucher was issued, and then what voucher I'm issuing, because this will allow me then to create a GOS3 off the back of this GOS6, which I'll show you. I'm going to do the simplest calculation because the complex ones I'm not 100% on right now. And then please make sure you tick you're claiming the NHS site test fee. It doesn't automatically tick that. It's picked the number of the patient, is it first or second from what you've completed up here, but you have to ensure you tick that so you get paid the site test fee as well, otherwise it won't let you proceed. And then you put your signature in there. Once you put that, we save awaiting contract to signatory. Now, I have additional access, so you might not automatically go onto this unless you're the contractor and the performer. So literally now this is the final stage where the contractor would sign to say, yep, that's right, I'm submitting this GOS6 claim. You can either submit straight from here, or you can go, right, I've done the GOS6 site test. I've got to the bit where I've said I need to create a pair of glasses and they're going to have a voucher prepared and we're going to, order their glasses. You can go to create a GOS3 voucher.
Can I just jump in before you start creating the GOS3? We've had a couple of questions come through, you see, so I just want to cover those. So we have somebody asked, just to confirm, is it a maximum of 3 changes and additions per day, or is that per venue?
It's per visit, so it's per PVN.
Thank you. So, and one person's asked, how do we create a GOS6 if we've had to email the PVN?
Is that you've not created it on PCSE Online? Is that what we're asking? Because you wouldn't be able to create a GOS6 unless you have a PVN reference that is accepted. So if you're not processing your PVNs yourself on the portal and getting your answer straight away, you'd have to wait until you get a decision whether that PVN is accepted or not before you can create a GOS6, unfortunately. So this is, I think, if you best practice, and we would advise where possible, if you can process your PVNs directly either on the portal or using a PMS system, if that's what you have within your organisation, so you have that PVN reference ready before you do the visit, because no visit should be undertaken unless you have an accepted PVN.
Thank you. And I've just got another one as well. Sorry, Salma.
No worries.
So somebody noticed a day centre on the booking form,
Yep.
and they thought that they could only test at their primary address. Are they able to test away from the home address?
Just, you get paid just a site test, I believe, at day centres. It does not allow, it's not like the same as a domiciliary visit, but if you needed to go to a day centre because, I don't know, that patient wasn't in their primary home or the care home for that day, they'd gone to a day centre but needed a site test, you could book it in to visit that day centre, but you wouldn't be paid the domiciliary fee. I believe it would just be the site test fee.
Lovely. Thank you, Salma. I'll just let Salma continue with her demonstration.
So we'll create a GOS3 off the back of this, but like I said, you can either decide to continue and submit your GOS6, or you can go straight to creating GOS3, but I'll show you creating the GOS3 off the back of this. So when you create the GOS3, what it automatically does is it's already fills in the patient details, so you don't have to fill that in, and you're just now filling in your prescription information. So like I said, I'm going to do a simple one that I'm aware of, so I'm not going to fill much else. Now, if you put the wrong prescription in, for whatever reason, I'm just making this up right now, and you put A in, you would sign it to say, this is right, as this is the prescription, I want an A voucher, and I want to create my GOS3 claim. It wouldn't let you because it's saying it's the incorrect voucher, so you have to put the appropriate prescription in based on what you're filling in. So that's quite intuitive for the system for it to do. So I'm aware 1.5 is an A voucher. So I'll put that, and then again you can either go create the GOS3 claim, which starts the claim for you, or you can do print a GOS3 voucher. Now, printing a GOS3 voucher, all that will do for you is it'll generate this form, but obviously, just for your information, you all may be aware we're moving away from paper to online from January, so we wouldn't be able to accept these forms. But what this does provide you with is the voucher code and the authorization code that can be used for either if that patient is going to want to go and get glasses from somewhere else, or the family member want to get them from somewhere else, or they don't want to apply for their glasses straight away, you can print this off or just provide these two references to them, and then they can use those references. They could come to you and say, right, we've done a site test with you, you created as a voucher, we'd like to go ahead with this voucher, and then you can continue from there. But that's where that would stop. I'm going to just search my GOS6. If you ever do that, it'll take you out as if you're processing, because it thinks that's it, you've done the process, you've stopped, you don't want to do anymore. So if we look at my GOS6 from today, and again, this is searching claim screens. Again, apologies if you all already know. I want to check my GOS6 that I've done today, and the example I was showing you earlier is where I've, off the back of my GOS6, obviously this is a waiting contractor, I'd already gone to create a voucher. If I click create a GOS3 voucher, it'll let me create that one again, and what you'll see is your references in there on here, and you can do it from that screen as well. So you've got various screens that you can use to create the vouchers and to process, through, you can print them off, or you can just continue. Just let's, if I was to say, let me carry on from here. I want to go ahead, continue, and I'm on to the next stage. So that's moved across the patient saying, yep, I want my pair of glasses or contact lenses. And this is where you would fill out what it is that they require, their eligibility again. So GOS3s and GOS4s, you can't obviously put over 60. So you'd have to click the eligibility that's required. So, what would they be on based on their age, or what would make them eligible for that GOS3 if that's what they are eligible for. So we're going to use pension credit for this patient. Please ensure you fill in whether it's the patient, the carer, not carer, the parent, partner or parent, and then you fill in their details, and then you go on to the same section as the signature. So the signature fields are exactly the same for whichever GOS type you do. Then have I not filled this in? See, this is the good thing. Don't forget to tick it. It will not let you move on. So sign. get your QR code, do whatever the signature needs to be, close, and then save and next. So this is the first part of the process. You've ordered your glasses, and then this is where you'd fill it in when you're supplying it, depending on whatever it is. Just, is it a distance, pair, near, bifocal? Because of the prescription I put in, the system already knows it can't be a near or bifocal, so it's automatic distance. But depending on what your prescriptions, you have those three options. What's the outcome? Was it new prescription? Was it unchanged? Any special features? So you fill that in, and the system automatically calculates the value. Now, if you wanted to retail it down because you had a sale on and you're going to charge them less, you just put the value that you are going to apply. But obviously, if you're not going to retail it down, just leave that blank. It's just there as an optional field. This is the value you're going to get paid, and this is when you fill in the date that you supplied the glasses. So if we say, let's say it was a really fast day, everything got done today, you'd sign it, save and next, and then you would submit this claim with the final signature being caught from the patient. Obviously, I know for domiciliary, it's not likely to happen that way, so you'd have to get the patient signature at another point when they're collecting the glasses or a carer's. But should it be the case that it can be done on the day, this would be the way you could do it. And then it's the same QR code. Click on there, sign, accept, and then close. And once you've submitted that, that's it. Now, this claim has been accepted, cannot be cancelled, it's going to get paid for in your next monthly payment run. So if I was to go and have a look at the claims we've done for today, your GOS3 has been accepted because I processed it all the way through, but your GOS6 hasn't just yet, because if you remember, I clicked on the create a GOS3 voucher from there. So what we just want to do is we want to finish this off. You can either do it from here, or your contractor will have access to bulk sign. But the contractor going for this, if that's the only one, sign this and then submit, and then this has been accepted as well. Once it confirms that the claim is submitted, that's it. That's your claims. Both your claims related to that patient have gone through. They've been accepted, and they'll be paid in your next month's pay run, depending on what date your pay runs normally are for your store. Our test accounts don't have any, so apologies, I can't show any statements, but that's pretty much where you'd be stopped at and where you'd end up at, and that's what you'd be looking for if you've got a GOS6 and a GOS3 off the back of it. You can do the GOS6 on its own, and if you want to, and like I said, you can go and create your GOS3 voucher at any time afterwards and try to create it, but it won't let you submit this GOS3 again because you've already done one in its first place. I think that's it. It was just GOS6s and GOS3s, wasn't it? Oh, just quickly show you an addition. So you'll notice this is the PVN I just did. There's no option to create a GOS6, but you can have your patients, and it's literally now this is a free form. It's not like what we had when we had the PVNs and it transferred over with the patient names already filled in and the address. These are the patients on the day, up to 3 that you can add from that page that I showed you where you search your PVN. You click on that additions button and then you fill in their details. Going to automatically generate the address, but that's because you're saying you're doing an addition off the back of that PVN, so it can't be at a different address. So it's automatically going to generate that for you. And it is you filling in everything that I've shown you on the previous one again, but for this patient that you're seeing on the day, is any of these apply? But if you do fill in conflicting information, like I said, it will stop you. It'll tell you if you miss something, it'll flag for you as well. And it's literally everything is the same until you go to, and then if you've got another retest code, and it's now that you initially had one patient at that property, but actually you've made a visit to more than one. So is this patient going to be classed as a second fee or a third patient fee? And then you're going to know, because obviously I can't determine, but let's say I've already done a first patient. There was a statement was issued with no prescription, so it won't allow you to fill that in. If I put, unchanged prescription, but if I do a new voucher and a prescription, then it fills that in for you. So I'm not going to create a GOS3 off the back of this. you want to claim your site test, you want to fill it in, and that's where we're at. And again, it's the same. Next step, you're on the contractor signatory. I showed you before creating a GOS3, but you can't create a GOS3 because I said that there was no new prescription or there was no need. There was just a statement issued, and then I can submit that, and it's as quick as that, and it's done. And that's an addition. And I've done one patient for you there, but you can add, like we said, up to 3 if that's a need for it. It's literally just looking out for that button here, making sure it's here. That's where you do your additions on the day. And that's it, really. Do a quick glide all of that one.
Just got a couple more questions that I want to go through. So somebody asked, can we get the patient carer, etc., to sign and complete their part of the form and then save it so the optometrist can go back and complete the rest when they're back at the practice?
For a GOS6?
They haven't said, so.
Yes, you'd have to fill in this section. Sorry. So you fill this in, you've said you've got to this bit here. So for a GOS6, I think that's possible. For your GOS3s is a little bit more difficult because there's 2 sets of signatures you need to capture. So if you get to this point here, you capture, let's say, the carer's, details, you put the same address, you get them to sign it and accept. You can stop here if needs be, because the next bit is for you to fill in for the actual performer and the contractors. So if you know the outcome on this, you could save this here, so save for later, and you can come out of it. And if you needed to, if you do your admin later on in the day, because you don't need a second signature on this form, but your GOS3s, obviously just bear in mind if you are, like I said, the likelihood of you dispensing the glasses on the day, unless you've got some sort of special machine that goes with you and you can create the glasses for him, is not going to be very likely. So you can do the same process. It's just with a GOS3 and a GOS4, usually on the system, you have to capture signatures twice. So it's not usually possible to do that. But definitely for a GOS6, you can stop, you can fill this bit when you get home yourself.
Fantastic. And one last question. So somebody asked, how long are the vouchers valid for?
Up until the end of this year, they are valid for 6 months for site tests. So that's your GOS6s and your GOS1s and 5s. For your vouchers and your repairs, so your GOS3s and GOS4s, they have 3 months, but this is changing from 1st of January. So any new site test done from the 1st of January will only have a 3-month validity period. So you'll have to ensure that you submit that claim, be it through the portal, PCSE Online, or be it through a third-party PMS system, depending on what your organisation use, within that 3-month period from that site test date. So we need to have received that accepted claim within 3 months from the site test date.
Fantastic. So somebody has asked, what happens with a GOS3 form if the patient has passed away before fitting?
So I think, does that not fall under uncollected glasses? Again, I would get the regulatory advice on it. But so if you've done the initial order, you've captured your first signature, which says they want to order that pair of glasses, and the order details are filled in, and it's the supply stage, there's going to be, it falls under the uncollected glasses, I believe. So you won't be able to capture the patient's signature. You will have produced the glasses but can't supply them. So there's going to be a process. Obviously, currently, we have to accept them by paper because we don't have, the system isn't updated. So if anybody's joining the webinar, next time we can cover that off as well. But what will happen is the system will have an option for uncollected glasses. You have to make sure you keep a record on your, is it the clinical records that the patients have, or their records that you maintain on there to say that, that's what's happened. Unfortunately, they're deceased between the order being placed and you producing your glasses and their collection, and you would process the claim as an uncollected pair of glasses. Where you don't capture the signature, it's not going to be needed, but you'll be able to submit that claim through on that basis. So that would be the route that you'd follow for those in that instance.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Salma. Right. Okay. I am going to make a close now. I just want to thank everybody for joining this evening. Thank you to Salma for going through the system demos with us, and I hope you found it useful, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you.